Hey, welcome to ACCQ Continuing Professional Education. This time we're going to talk about interim financial reporting. This is under PAS number 34. So what is this all about? Now, so we hear about one of the characteristics in good financial reporting is timeliness. So when you talk about timeliness, you're talking about time periods, no? Subdivide yan into months, maybe even quarter, no? So ano ba yung how do we approach that reporting na yon? So this and all, we're going to answer that after this. So, like we said, we're going to talk about interim financial reporting. This is under PAS 34. So, before we begin, know the basic principles of interim financial reporting. Ano ba yung prinsipyo na kumbaga underlying principle dito sa interim financial reporting? Like we said a while ago, we talked about timeliness, no? Or yung periodicity, yung mga time periods subdivided into months, maybe even into quarter, semi-annual, to identify the components of an interim financial report. We're going to talk about that, no? And finally, to be able to prepare and present comparative interim financial statements. So when you talk about financial statement, you're talking about yung mga statement of financial position or balance sheet, statement of financial operations or income statement, yung comprehensive income, statement of comprehensive income, cash flows, equity, those things. So without much ado, we now proceed to the preliminaries. Okay, so interim financial reporting means the preparation and presentation of financial statement for a period of less than 1 year. So alam niyo natin kasi yung pag-prepare ng financial statement, normally isang taon 'yan, no? So yung financial statement as of ending yung sa let's say December 31. No? So we're used to dun sa calendar year, no? Okay, but did you know that yung financial reporting or can be done, yung financial statement can be dated other than yung calendar year, no? So dito pumapasok yung mga fiscal year. So any date that starts other than January 1, no? It could be let's say July 1 to June 30 the following year, no? So this is a fiscal year and yung kanilang periodicity, yung kanilang let's say reporting is done let's say quarterly every 3 months, no? From July, August, September to September 30, tapos from October to December, that second quarter. So iba yun, so may peculiarity dito sa interim financial reporting. For some reason, mas in the pursuance of course yung timeliness saka yung bang mas simple, no? Okay, understandability sa kanila, no? Because okay, so para mas kumbaga mas simplified yung mga reporting, no? Okay, of course in some companies, no, may prefer yung ganon, no? Especially dun sa mga publicly listed, no? So PS 34 prescribes the minimum content for an interim financial report and the principles for recognition and measurement incomplete or condensed financial statement for an interim period. Okay, so like we said a while ago, interim financial reports may be presented monthly, quarterly, or semi-annually. No? Okay, so quarterly interim reports are the most common. Okay, kasi mas kumbaga sa bite size yung kanilang reporting, no? Okay, so hindi kumbaga hindi ka masyadong mawiwindang, no? So bite size lang, no? Okay, so kumbaga pwedeng yung bang condensed, no? Quarterly interim reports are the most common. So however, public traded entities are encouraged to provide interim financial reports at least semi-annually, at least twice a year, no? And such reports are to be made available not later than 60 days after the end of the interim period. So not later than 60 days, no, after the end nung interim period, no? Okay, so halimbawa, nag-end siya nung June 30. So not later than 60 days from June 30. So mga June, July, August, mga August. No? At least not hindi abot na ng September to, no? Okay, so frequency of interim reporting. CFAS 34 does not mandate which entities are required to publish interim financial reports, no? How frequently or soon after the end of an interim period. So, wala namang yung bang strict ka dito na provision na kailangan yung mga entities ay mag-report kung let's say kung ganitong buwan o yung ganito every month or every quarter, no? So it does not it does not recommend that, no? Okay, depende na rin sa company 'yon. So the Philippine jurisdiction, no, the Securities and Exchange Commission or the SEC and Philippine Stock Exchange PSE require entities covered by the reportorial requirements of revised Securities Act to file quarterly interim financial reports within 45 days after the end of each of the first 3 quarters. Okay, so within 45 days after the end of each of the first 3 quarters. So let's say natapos ng let's say ng September 30. So 45 days, no? From September 30. So that would be within 45 days. So that would be around October 30 pwede, no? Okay, basta hindi lang lalagpas ng 45 days. The SEC also requires entities covered by the rules on commercial papers and Financing Act. Yan. So to file, yun na nga. No? Okay. Kakasabi ko lang. Okay. Bakit? Kasi mga public entities to. No? So, kumbaga, nire-require rin sila na kumbaga, ini-encourage pala na mag, yung bang, to, at least to be more transparent to their investors, no? Okay, parang naman para na-update yung mga investors nila, no? Okay, so entities that provide interim financial reports in conformity with financial financial reporting standards shall conform to the recognition, measurement, and disclosure requirements. So speaking of yung mga components of interim financial reports, so PAS 34, paragraph 8 provides an interim financial report shall include at a minimum the following components. Okay, so letter A, condensed statement of financial position. And so when you say condensed, it means that each of the headings and subtotals presented in the entity's most recent annual financial statement is required. No? Pero there's no requirement to include yung greater detail, no? Unless this is specifically required, no? Okay, so that is what condensed means, no? So yung headings and subtotals na nakapresent doon sa entity, doon sa financial statement ng entity, yung most recent annual financial statement. Okay, so pero hindi naman kailangan in greater detail. Next is yung condensed statement of comprehensive income. So dito kasama na rin yung mga non-operating income dito sa comprehensive income. So, mas kumpleto to. And then, yung isa naman, yung condensed statement of changes in equity. Okay, yung mga, of course, yung mga shareholders, no? And then, condensed statement of cash flows. Yan. And finally, selected explanatory notes. So, paragraph 8, 8A of PAS 34 provides that an entity can present items of profit or loss in a separate condensed income statement. And so yung bang nakahiwalay yun, no? Naka-segregate, no? They can have yung separate condensed income statement, no? Now let's talk about yung disclosure. Okay? So PAS 34 allows an entity to publish a set of condensed financial statement of complete set of financial statement in the interim report. Okay, and of course, the example of some of the disclosures required in the condensed interim financial report include the write-down of such inventories to net realizable value and the reversal of such write-downs. Ayan, so kailangan may disclosure yan kasi para mas klaro doon sa mga readers ng financial statement, no? Especially pagka yung bang mga ano, yung mga interim financial reporting, no? Yung condensed, no? Okay, so at least kailangan may disclosure para naman hindi ma-mislead rin yung mga readers. So, halimbawa, meron dong let's say impairment of an asset, no? Okay? Kailangan naka ano doon. Let's say nangyari 'yon doon sa ano na 'yon, doon sa particular na period na 'yon. So that should be disclosed. Next is yung recognition of a loss from the impairment of property, plant, and equipment and intangible assets and the reversal of such impairment of loss. So, yun, isa pa, no? Okay, so impairment of property, plant, and equipment. So, it should be disclosed, no? Okay, so that the users of the financial statement would not be misled, no? Kung sa, especially if it's an interim financial statement wherein yung bang it's well, for all intents and purposes, yung ano lang siya eh, hindi siya kasi kumpleto eh because it only happened within that time frame, no? Okay, so yun yung mga kailangan i-consider, no? So especially yung loss, if the loss happened doon sa period na yon where the loss was incurred, no? Okay, and next is the reversal of any provision for reconstructing. And then the next one is acquisition and disposal of property, plant, and equipment. And so this is important, no? An important disclosure, no? Because a company may purchase a property or an equipment during the interim period, no? Especially let's say if it's on the third quarter, and if it would affect yung quarter na yon, so that should be disclosed, no? Commitments for the purchase of property, plant, and equipment. Of course, that's one of the disclosures needed. Litigation settlements. So when you talk about litigation, this could either be a provision, no? A provision for contingent liability, especially yung mga yung sa contingent liability na merong halimbawa the company has to settle an obligation, no? And it may not be measurable kung magkano yung amount na yon, but it has to at least disclose, no? Especially if this is a contingent liability, no? Okay, so it needs to disclose, especially if it was incurred during that period or that particular let's say quarter. Next is yung corrections of prior period errors in previously reported financial data. So that is also for disclosure. Changes in the economic circumstances that affect fair value of financial assets in financial liabilities. So that is also another important disclosure. And of course, any debt default or any breach of a debt covenant that has not been corrected subsequently. So that is also for disclosure. No? And related party transactions, changes in the classification of financial assets, and contingent liabilities. That's the last one. Contingent liabilities and contingent assets. And so these are just examples of the disclosure that is needed in a condensed interim financial report. Now let's talk about presentation of comparative interim statements. So we have for the statement of financial position, actually we have five financial statements, starting with statement of financial position. So letter A, that statement of financial position at the end of the current interim period. Yan, so it needs yung comparative, no? And then yung comparative statement of financial position at the end of the preceding period, yung comparative, no? Okay? Sabihin yung preceding period, end of the preceding period, and of course yung sa current, pinagkukumparahan siya. The next is the income statement. So first is income statement for the current interim period. So that should also be presented. And of course, income statement cumulatively for the current financial year to date. Okay, so taken in consideration yung mga quarters na kasama doon sa year to date na yon. So cumulative, no? Okay, and then comparative income statement for the comparable interim period of the preceding year. So ito rin, kasama rin yung last year, no? Comparative income statement doon for the comparable interim statement of the preceding year. So bakit ba kasama lahat yan doon sa interim statement? Para makita yung comparison, whether kung let's say kung ano ba yung kanilang progress so far, no? Okay, yung mga variances nila, ano ba yung mga difference, no, within that certain season, especially kung seasonality yung produkto ng company. Okay, and then finally, comparative income statement cumulatively for the comparable financial year to date of the preceding year. So yung year to date nila, so from such time up to, let's say, December 31 of the previous year, no? So kasama na rin yung income statement, no, the interim period for that for the preceding year. Next is yung sa statement of comprehensive income. So this includes statement of comprehensive income for the current interim period. Next is yung statement of comprehensive income cumulatively for the current financial year to date. Okay, so let's say up to December 31, 2020, so kasama na yung interim, let's say if it's quarterly, okay, so yung first quarter, second quarter of 2020 up to year to date, third quarter, of course, and up to year to date. And then comparative statement of comprehensive income for the comparative interim statement of the previous preceding year. So ganun din para yung sa preceding year, let's say 2019. Yan, so and then finally, yung comparative statement of comprehensive income cumulatively for the comparable financial year to date of the preceding year. So as of December 31, 2019, kasama yon, no? Okay, dito sa statement of comprehensive income, no? Okay, so para rin maikumpara siya dun sa current year, no? Kung ano yung nangyari during the previous year as of so from year up to the year to date ng 2019 and yung year to date ng 2020, yung current year, no? Okay, if let's say if 2020 is the current year, no? Okay, so makikita dun yung ano yung bang yung bang difference, no? Okay, so nung revenues as well as yung loss, yung mga expenses doon, no? Okay, yung mga variances. Okay, and then next is yung statement of equity. So ito naman yung statement of changes in equity cumulatively for the current year, current financial year to date. And dito dalawa lang, no? And comparative statement of changes in equity for the comparable financial year to date of the preceding year. Yan. So yung current and then yung preceding, yung up to that year to date, no? So when you say year to date, kasama na dito yung mga quarters, no? Let's say if it's quarter, no? So let's say January to March, April to June, tapos July to September, no? And then year to date hanggang sa October to December, no? So year to date na 'yon, no? So kasama na doon. So preceding at saka doon sa current. And then finally, ito sa cash flow, statement of cash flows cumulatively for the current year and yung statement of cash flows. Babasahin ko na lang para sa iyo. For the comparable financial year to date of the preceding year. Yeah. So those are some of the presentation for the comparative financial or comparative interim statement. Now we go to the basic principles. Yeah. So PAS 34, paragraph 28 provides that an entity shall apply the same accounting policies in the annual statement. So, kung ano rin yung ginagawang accounting policy, whether it's accrual, no? So, ganun rin yung ginagawa dito sa using sa interim financial statement. However, the frequency of an entity's reporting, whether annual, half-yearly, or quarterly, shall not affect the measurement of the annual results. Yan. So, wala namang, kumbaga, yung bang, especially yung walang material na effect doon sa annual, no? Kasi at the end of the year, kailangan pareho yung bang those financial statements, no? Whether it's done interim or yung annual, that yung interim should complement the annual. Revenues from products sold or services rendered are generally recognized for interim reports on the same basis for the annual report. So meaning if it's, let's say, if the revenue was earned during that interim period, then they should recognize that, no? Costs and expenses are recognized as incurred in an interim period. Yan. So expenses associated directly with revenue are matched against revenue in those interim periods in which the related revenue is recognized. So yun naman mga expenses not associated with revenue are recognized in interim periods as incurred or allocated over the interim periods benefited. Okay, so normally ito yung mga expenses not associated. These are the operating expenses, no? Okay. Now, paragraph 21 provides that if the business is highly seasonal, in addition to the current interim period, financial statements, the entity is encouraged to disclose financial information, especially pagka seasonal, no? Okay, kasi maaring, let's say, ang malakas sila, let's say, sa January, February, no? Okay, so they need to disclose that, no? Okay, so if the business is highly seasonal, in addition dun sa current interim period statement, the entity is encouraged to disclose. Ano ba yung nangyari dito? So ito yung pinakamataas nila, let's say, na sales, no? January and February. So para makita doon sa let's say doon sa interim financial report, no? Okay, so these are done for the latest 12 months. Okay, so yan. So ilalagay rin doon, no? Let's say kahit na yung mga months na hindi affected yung seasonality kailangan makita rin kasi ano yan, kumbaga parang disclosure, kahit disclosure man lang, even if it's a disclosure, no? So if let's say the sales is high on January and February, no? Of course, there should be a disclosure aside from the accrual of the stat sales. Pero yung mga months, let's say for the next 12 months, let's say March, April, May, June, July, hindi na sila affected. So pero meron pa rin ano, it should be also disclosed, no? Okay, for the latest 12 months. And then comparative information for the prior comparable 12-month period. And then finally, paragraph 41 provides the preparation of interim financial reports generally requires a greater use of estimation than annual financial report. Now, since this interim financial reporting, no, is done on a short basis, no, yung mga short term lang. So, the estimation is of greater use, no. Okay, kasi kumbaga parang you will measure how much those particular months were benefited, no? And then ikakalat mo yun sa iba, no, which are also benefited, no? Okay, so then rather an annual, because sa annual pasok na lahat sila. Okay, pasok na lahat sila. So there is less estimation if it's in annual than an interim, no? Kung 3 months lang, no? Okay, now another thing na yung sa inventories. Okay, so are measured for interim financial reporting by the same principles as at financial year end. So this simply means that inventory shall be measured at lower of cost or net realizable value, even for interim purposes. Okay, so of course, the same measurement being done in an annual should be also done using the interim period. And then seasonal, cyclical, or occasional revenue shall not be anticipated or deferred as of interim date if anticipation or deferral would not be appropriate at the end of the entity's reporting period. So, thus, dividends, revenue, or royalties and government grants shall be recognized in the interim period when they occur. So, this only states that, you know, do not anticipate, no, or deferred yung mga interim date unless let's say for example a dividend was received during that or they occurred during that interim period. So recognize as they occur. Also, uneven costs that are incurred evenly during an entity's financial year shall be anticipated or deferred for interim purposes only if it is appropriate to anticipate or defer that type of cost at the end of the financial year. Yan. Next is yung irregular cost. Certain costs are expected to be incurred irregularly. Okay, ito yung mga cost. Yan, as the title suggests, irregular cost, no? During the financial year, such as training cost. Okay, so such costs are generally discretionary and even though they are planned, shall not be anticipated as interim date simply because the cost have not yet been incurred. So, in other words, recognize them only when they are incurred, no? Even if it's irregular cost, no? Okay, so like training cost. Okay, wherein yung mga training cost, hindi naman madalas yan, no? Okay, so that should be accrued only when they are incurred. Depreciation and amortization for an interim period should be based only on assets owned during the interim period. Okay, so kung let's say they bought an asset during, let's say, January. So for the month of January, March, April, there should be a depreciation of 3 months, assuming it was bought on January 1. So ano siya? Kumbaga, it would be prorated dun sa 3 months na yun, January, February, March, wherein those months were benefited by the asset, no? Okay, and then also gain or loss from disposal of property, gain or loss from discontinued operations, and other gain or loss shall not be allocated over the interim periods. The gain is allocated when realized. Okay, so take note of that, when realized. Yan. And the loss is reported in the interim period when they are incurred. So, like we said, only recognized revenue when it is realized and or when it is earned, and when it comes to loss, when it is incurred. Income tax expense shall reflect the same general principle of income tax accounting applicable to annual reporting. Yeah. So we're going to show you some of the examples. So speaking of income tax, we have an example here. Computing income tax using the in a interim period, no? So an entity has the following income tax before or income before tax and annual effective tax rate, no, for the 3 quarters of the current year. So these are the information. So we have income before tax and yung tax rate, no? Okay, so first quarter, so we have 5 million. Second quarter, we have 6 million. And third quarter, we have 8 million. So for a total income of 19 million. Now, during the first 2 quarters, ang rate niya is 30%. And on the third quarter, naging 25%. So how do we compute for the income tax? Okay, so for the first quarter, the computation is 5 million times 30% because 30% yung rate niya nung first quarter. So that would be 1,500,000. So that is the income tax for first quarter. Okay, whatever the prevailing rate is during that quarter. And on the second quarter, we have 30% times 6 million, as we see here. So this would be 1.8 million. Yan. Okay, now we get the total with the sum of this, that's 3.3 million. This is the total income tax for the first 3 quarters. Now, upon obtaining that, the total income tax for the first 2 quarters, we now have we now compute for the cumulative tax for as of the year. We now compute for the cumulative tax for the first 3 quarters. So that would be 25% of 19 million. So as we see here, yung total income, no, okay, is 19 million. So we computed that during on third quarter, which the prevailing rate was already changed to 25%, no, especially sa create law, no. So that's mga corporations, no. Okay. So speaking of which, we have also a video, no, on corporate tax, even using the create law. So as we can see here, the cumulative tax that's multiplied by 25%. Okay, so we have that's 4,750,000. So as if ito yung rate na ginamit, no, yung 25% na yon. However, we have already computed for the income tax, no, for the first 2 quarters. So we now deduct that, no, Okay, so the first two quarters using the 30% rate, which is 3.3, the amount that we have computed above. So the difference of this one would be the income tax for the third quarter. Okay, so this is the income tax expense. And so as we can see, we computed the income tax just like we compute just like what how we compute in an annual setting. Okay, so like I said, if you want to check out some of the videos on corporate income tax, so we have videos here in this channel on corporate income tax. And then number two, an entity's financial reporting year ends June 30 and it reports quarterly. Yeah. Okay, so this means that financial reporting is from July 1 of one year to June 30 the following year. So ito ginagamit nito fiscal year, no? Pero quarterly yung reports niya. So from Ju- from yung ano niya yung starting niya is July 1. So and then 1 year after, which is June 30 of the next year, that's one whole fixed fiscal year. Okay, so fiscal year is any month that is starting other than January. Okay, so in this case, July. Okay, so the tax year ends December 31. So ano naman yun naman yung tax year. Okay, December 31. Okay, now the entity reported the following income before tax for the financial year from July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021. Okay, so isang taon yan. No? Okay, so yung first quarter niya is from July 1, 2020 to September 30, 2020. So, of course, they're using also interim financial reporting by reporting in quarters. No? Okay, so July 1 to September 30, 2020 is their first quarter for 1 million, followed by this is their second quarter, October 1 to December 31 for 2 million. And then yung third quarter nila is from January 1 of the following year to March 31 for 2.5 million. And finally, yung fourth quarter nila is from April 1, 2021, the following year up to yung kanilang year end is June 30, 2021. It's 4 million. Okay, now, the effective tax rate is 30% for 2020 and 25% for 2021. Which is actually this is the prevailing tax rate, no, under the CREATE law. Okay, so the income tax expense for each quarter of the financial reporting year is computed as follows. So for the first quarter, we have 30% of 1 million. That would give you 300,000. Okay, and then second quarter, and so we're still using 30%, no? Kasi it's hanggang 2020 yan. So 30% multiplied by 2 million, so that is 600,000. Okay, and then third quarter, now we're using 25%. So that's multiplied by 25, 2.5 million. So this is 625. And finally, on the fourth quarter, we're also using 25% because that's already 2021 under the CREATE law. Okay, so that would be 1 million pesos. Ayan. So you get the total tax expense for the year. It's 2,525,000. This is the total tax expense, income tax expense. So if you have any questions or any comments, you may write down your comments in the comment section. And of course, subscribe and share. Medyo nagugulo yung buho ko. Kasi kanina so ngayon medyo nakababa yung computer na. Yan. Okay, so did you like my setting? No? Okay, it's free from Google. Okay, so God bless and stay safe.